Matthew Stafford has been the face of the Detroit Lions for the last dozen years. He holds every record individually there is to hold for a quarterback in franchise history. However, the former number one pick and the team have been unable to capture elusive postseason success and national relevancy. And as the Lions begin a rebuild under a new administration, they have mutually decided to part ways with their star quarterback as they begin anew. So the question now is, what's next for the Lions and their celebrated quarterback as they go their separate ways? Dave Birkett covers the Lions for the Detroit Free Press. He joined me this week to discuss what comes next for both sides. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Hey, Dave, I want to take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm excited to talk to you this morning about some Detroit Lions football. So great to see you, and thanks for being here this morning.
It's my pleasure. How are you?
I'm good, Dave, and I'm going to start you off with softball and just ask you your initial thoughts on the Lions' decision to mutually part ways with the quarterback Matthew Stafford.
Look, frankly I think it's the best move for both parties. I know it's probably difficult for really both of them to do, but my thoughts have nothing to do with how Matthew is playing as a player right now. It's more about where the Lions are as an organization, how far away they are from legitimate contention, and where Matthew Stafford will be in his career by the time the Lions get there. He's got 2 years left on his deal. He's going to need a new contract at some point. He has had some health issues in the past with the back. Played through a lot of the injuries, but I feel that by the time the Lions are competitive, that's a point where maybe you need another quarterback, or it would be better at that point in your development as a team to have a young quarterback. So Matthew Stafford he's done some really good things here in Detroit. Again, this is nothing about him as a player, but for him too and his legacy, it's probably good for him to not take part in another rebuild and go somewhere else that's maybe a ready-made contender.
Now, saying that, what do you think his legacy will be here in Detroit, buddy?
Yeah, somebody asked me that yesterday, and I look, you can't separate the wins and losses. I mean, that is part of who he is and part of what happened here, right? And I'm not saying that's all his fault, but 12 years, he never won a playoff game, 3 playoff appearances. But that being said, he is the best quarterback I think most Lions fans have ever rooted for. He's extremely talented. He helped dig this franchise out of its 0-16 hole. He can do some amazing things with his arm. So I think he's a very good quarterback. Obviously put up some great numbers, but maybe one, and a very tough quarterback. We can't omit that from his legacy, given all that he's played through. But at the end of the day, he's still a quarterback that never won a playoff game.
And Dave, where do you think the Lions will go from here to find their next quarterback?
I think it has to be in the draft. I mean, maybe there's a stopgap of some sort, that a veteran, depending on what rookie they have, that they turn to in 2021. I listed put a list out of about 10 quarterbacks on freak.com on Tuesday. And Tyrod Taylor is a guy that makes a lot of sense because of his ties to new offensive coordinator Anthony Lynn. Just maybe the style of offense that the Lions are going to play. But ultimately, I think the Lions have an opportunity here where, especially if Aaron Rodgers is leaving Green Bay, where maybe they have an opportunity if they can find the right quarterback to be the team in the division at some point down the road. So they need to hit that rookie quarterback. They need to get the right guy. Not going to be easy at number 7, but there's enough quarterback talent out there that hopefully they can do that.
Now, spinning it forward, Dave, what do you think the Lions can get for Matthew Stafford?
Yeah, well, trade talks are going to start this week at the Senior Bowl. So we'll probably find out soon. I mean, I do think they can get a first-round pick, probably a little sweetener to that. I don't know if that's, a day 2 pick, what else that entails, a player. But I look at the number of teams that will be interested. And granted, Deshaun Watson, if Aaron Rodgers is on the market, there will be some competition and perhaps some better options. But Matthew, for the money that he's due, for where he's at in his career, for the number of years you can have him, I think will be viable for just about any team that feels it's a quarterback away. And, you look at, I've thrown this out there. Last year, the Indianapolis Colts gave up a mid-first round pick. I think it was number 13 for DeForest Buckner. And, Matthew Stafford would, as a quarterback, you would think that he would be able to generate at least that in return. And there are teams like the Colts, the 49ers, teams who are part of those trades who hold picks somewhere in that general vicinity.
And Dave, where do you think you'll ultimately end up?
Well, that's a good question. Again, I think it's far too early to say. I mean, I would put, when I rank my, potential landing spot destinations for Stafford, I put Indy number 1 because, I think AFC, the Lions would have some, they might prefer to deal into the AFC if all offers are relatively equal. They have a pick around number 20, if I'm not mistaken. They need a quarterback. They might feel like they're a quarterback away, and they're in a very winnable division in the AFC. I would put the 49ers in Washington. I think those two are also teams that you have to strongly consider as a landing spot for Matthew, because the 49ers, again, they have a very appealing draft pick at number 12. And that's a team that if they decide to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo would make sense for Detroit or for acquiring Stafford. Washington, obviously, there's the old Martin Mayhew tie, and that's another team that could be a quarterback away from feeling that it can contend for the Super Bowl.
And Dave, I'm just curious to get your thoughts on the new regime change with the Lions. Obviously, Dan Campbell made some headlines with his out of the ordinary press conference, and the Lions are also pairing him with a first-time GM. So I'm just wondering your thoughts on the new direction of the franchise.
Yeah, kneecaps are safe right now, I guess. But no, look, on one hand, the Lions maybe didn't get what they set out to get, right? They said they wanted experience. They didn't get it. On the other, as you sort of look at this now, maybe because they're going through this major rebuild, they felt a little more comfortable going with younger, coach and GM and sort of their maturation and guys that have less experience. Dan did have that interim stint. I think ultimately, they got a couple good people. Brad Holmes, by all accounts, very smart, very good eye for talent. He seems to have built a pretty good front office around him, bringing in John Dorsey and Ray Agnew. Those are two good hires. And same thing with Dan Campbell. He's look, the guys, everyone talks about his leadership abilities, and that's something that the Lions lack. So we'll see. He's got a first-time defensive coordinator. They got a lot of work to do on both sides of the ball. But I think hopeful would be the right word. If you're a Lions fan, you should be hopeful at least about what's happened.
And Dave, they're not going to win anything until they fix the defense. It was historically bad this year. So with the extra picks they'll get from the Stafford trade, what do you think they'll allot those? Do you think there'll be defense?
Well, because look, again, I think quarterback is the most important thing. If you think you can get one of those guys at 7, I think obviously that's what you do. But what if you have to move up, right? I don't know, maybe the Jets are willing to deal too, and there's a quarterback that you really feel strongly about that you need to go get. I think you're probably right that they probably, because they have so much work to do defensively, that they probably do that. But, where they are in the rebuild, maybe, they've got some decisions to make at wide receiver too. And so I think we need to see where that draft pick is, where the strength is early in the draft. It appears to be a little bit more of an offensive draft with some of those top wide receivers and some of the quarterbacks. But ultimately, they have so much work to do on defense. They have to allocate some resources to that side of the ball.
And Dave, I'm curious to get your perspective on the local versus national perception of this franchise as they sort of try to reinvent or reinvigorate their image, both here locally and nationally as well.
Yeah, I mean, nationally, we've seen over the last several years, right, where some pundits they'd always say, the Lions are they're the team that's going to, jump up and make the playoffs or win the Super Bowl every once in a while. You hear that. And locally here, there's much more of a same old Lions sort of, feel like we know what's going to happen. They're going to tease you and then they're not going to make it. And so, I mean, Lions fans have lived it. That's why it's been so difficult. And that's why, Lions fans, I think by and large, as much as it might have hurt them some of them to see Matthew Stafford go, I think that's why the vast majority realize it's the right time for it to happen, because he's been here 12 years. He's given all he has and he hasn't won, and maybe it's time to do something new. And so as I look at what's gone on, I sort of see this as a complete change, right? New coach, new GM, new quarterback, essentially new owner, same Ford family, obviously, but Sheila Ford Hamp just took over last spring. So we'll see. It's a major crossroads for the franchise, and we'll see where they go from here.
And Dave, how much do you think Matthew Stafford has left as a player in the tank, as he sort of is on the back nine of his career?
Yeah, no, he is, but I think he's still got 5 good years left. I mean, this is not a guy who, we're not talking about Drew Brees, right? And we're not talking about Phillip Rivers, guys whose arms were shot. That's not where Matthew's at this stage of his career. If he wants to play 5 more years, I think he can. Maybe he has a round number like 15 in mind, and he just wants to finish out the contract. But ultimately, I think if the body holds up, again, there are some health questions about his back, about all the injuries that he's played with and how, that may impact him as he starts to age on the football field. I don't think he's going to be Tom Brady playing until he's, 44 or 45 or whatever Brady plays till. But I do think Matthew has another good contract in him if he wants one.
And Dave, my final question for you is, how do you think the Lions can define success this offseason and then spinning it forward into 2021?
Well, I think, if you look realistically at where the Lions are right now, the moves that they have ahead of them, it'd be hard pressed, I think, for most people to say they're going to be a playoff team. I mean, we'll see what happens, right? Maybe they swing some crazy trade and Deshaun Watson comes here or whatever the case is. But, by and large, all signs point to them going young at the quarterback position, to having a young roster, to starting from sort of the ground up. So if that's the case, you have to be patient with this rebuild. And that's why they gave Dan Campbell a 6-year contract as head coach. So success, I think you need to see the culture established. I think you need to see people buying in from the beginning, because that did not happen under Matt Patricia. And then whoever that young quarterback is, you need to see growth and you need to see development and you need to see signs that he can be the guy, because that's a very difficult position to nail in the NFL. You need to do it to have sustained long-term success. And that's why all eyes will be on that position this offseason.
Hey, Dave, I really want to thank you for taking some time out of your ever-evolving schedule to join me this morning to talk some Lions football. Thanks for getting up early, and great to be with you this morning.
You got it. Happy to do it. We'll talk again.